Our story begins on Geonosis, inside of Dooku's lair far from the arena and the first battle of this war. Dooku had evacuated the area, but he was tailed by two Jedi, Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi. Dooku had fought and defeated both of them without too much strain. Skywalker was powerful, but the boy was reckless and overconfident. Dooku took care of him in the end, cutting off a hand, throwing him to the side. Kenobi was even easier to defeat perhaps. He was holding back, he was too defensive, too afraid, Dooku thought, and now he was cast aside with gashes in his arm and leg. But the real challenge for Dooku was his own former master, Jedi Master Yoda. The little green Jedi was the most powerful of all of them, and Dooku realized in the end that he was beginning to lose. So he took action in order to evacuate. Dooku ripped a steel beam from his hangar, dropping it right over Skywalker and Kenobi. In Dooku's mind, there was no reality where Yoda lets these Jedi die, and he pursues him. That was just not something Dooku ever expected from Yoda, and so he turned, running towards his ship as the beam began to drop. But for Yoda, time seemed to go into slow motion. He looked to Anakin and Obi-Wan, and he saw two lives that he could save in this moment. But then he looked over to Dooku, and in his mind, Yoda saw countless lives that could be saved by ending Dooku today. He was a dark cloud over the galaxy, and Yoda made a split-second decision. As Dooku climbed the ramp to his ship, Yoda leapt through the air, lightsaber aimed forward, and he landed right on Dooku's back, stabbing the lightsaber through his back shoulder blade, ripping it through. And behind him, Yoda closed his eyes as he heard the crushing sound of the giant beam slam into the floor. And then, silence. Yoda looked down at Dooku's body as he realized that, in the end, he was forced to kill the man that he once trained when he was a small boy, a man who fell so far from Yoda's grasp that he joined the dark side. And Yoda was faced with the reality that he chose to kill Dooku instead of saving two people. This was a choice he never would have imagined he would make, but the stress of the droid army, the strange emergence of the clone army, and the realization that the Sith had been building all of this right under his nose the entire time made Yoda choose the kill in the end. Yoda couldn't bear to turn around, where Skywalker and Kenobi were just crushed. But then, the strangest thing would happen. Yoda heard a small, sad, broken voice just mutter, "You could have saved him." And now Yoda turned to see Anakin Skywalker down on his knees, his one remaining hand clutching the wound where his other hand was cut off. And Anakin kept replaying the moment over and over again. As the beam fell, and Obi-Wan saw Yoda turn to Dooku, Obi-Wan used whatever strength he had left to push Anakin away from him. Anakin didn't even have time to think before the beam landed, and he was still alive. But his master, his best friend, was gone. Finally, the shock subsided, and Anakin stood up, hurrying back to the giant beam as he was going to lift it and save Obi-Wan. But from the entrance, Padme and a squad of clone troopers ran inside, and Padme understood what happened. She got to Anakin, and with the help of the clones, they turned him away from the beam, saying that it's already over. Obi-Wan is gone. Anakin was forced to accept this as reality, as Padme would guide him away. But back in the hangar, Yoda still hadn't said a word. In his 900 years of living, this was one of the most difficult choices he's ever made. Choosing to kill his own former Padawan and letting Jedi die. In a vacuum, it may have been the right choice to kill the Sith Lord and save so many lives, but it just felt so wrong. Yoda would climb into Dooku's ship, sitting down in the pilot seat, trying to find anything, staring out of the window at the sandy planet that stretched endlessly for miles in front of him. Then, the droid pilot seated next to Yoda would suddenly just take off, as if it were waiting. The ship blasted away from the hangar, and coordinates were automatically entered into the autopilot system. Yoda quickly read them out, finding that this droid was taking him to Coruscant for some reason. Yoda didn't have his comlink on him. It fell out during his duel, and so suddenly Yoda was on a voyage all alone to find something or someone that was expecting Dooku. But meanwhile, back on Geonosis, the battle was wrapping up in what could sort of be called a victory for the Jedi and the Republic in the end. Despite the loss of so many Jedi, the arrival of the clones allowed the Republic to slow down the Separatist advance into the galaxy, and allow for the Republic to prepare their own fleets to jump into war. Yes, the Separatists still had a massive time advantage, but this battle would help overall, and Jedi Master Mace Windu would soon take an LAAT gunship over to Dooku's hangar, along with Masters Fisto and Plo Koon. Here, they would find Anakin Skywalker, still seemingly in shock, as Padme and the clones were gathered on the bridge. Senator Amidala would inform the Jedi of what happened, and then tell them that Yoda took off in Dooku's ship, but no one knows where. Windu learned about the fate of Kenobi, and he could tell how this was already affecting Anakin. The boy said it should have been him. He could have saved Obi-Wan. He could have saved both of them, but he was too weak. He won't be that weak again. These words, and the tone in which they were stated, gave Windu some pause. He just had Anakin get into the shuttle, and they would fly back to the main area, where Republic transports would be bringing them back to Coruscant. And as the Republic Jedi and clones were wrapping everything up, colossal events were about to unfold on Coruscant. Inside of his lair in the industrial sector, Darth Sidious awaited the arrival of Dooku. According to the reports from Wat Tambor and Nute Gunray, things went about as good as he could have hoped on Geonosis. Although Obi-Wan and Padme had survived the initial attack, the arena led to the first battle of the Clone Wars. There was no way to negotiate out of it now. War has begun, and the Jedi were roped in as generals, whether they like it or not. Everything was going according to plan, and now Darth Sidious watched the ship belonging to Dooku smoothly fly into the hangar and land inside. And inside of the ship, there was no Dooku. Instead, Grandmaster Yoda sat back as the autopilot brought him here, and immediately, he could feel the darkness that surrounded this place. Yoda quickly realized that Dooku may have been further down the path of the dark side than he'd thought. Perhaps he was a Sith, and the person waiting here is either the apprentice to Dooku, or perhaps the Master. Yoda would hold his lightsaber in his hand, and he slowly crept down the ramp, looking around the dark chamber, until something caught his eye. A pair of dark yellow eyes seemed to be peering at him, and then a red lightsaber ignited, and this phantom from the corner spun at Yoda with a piercing scream of darkness. Yoda barely moved in time, spinning low, and then his green blade slashed upward in a tight swing, forcing Sidious back. The Sith struck again, with overhead chops, sudden thrusts, aimed right for Yoda, and sweeping cuts to his leg. Yoda leapt around, flipping to evade, bouncing off the walls, forcing the Dark Lord to shift his attacks. Sidious would drive Yoda towards the edge of the hangar, right to the opening with nothing but open air beneath. But before they could get to the opening, Yoda redirected the pressure, flipping over the Sith, striking down at his back. Sidious caught the blade with his own, then spun into a vicious kick that knocked Yoda to the floor. Yoda rolled across the floor many times, realizing that this power was beyond Dooku. This Sith has been waiting in the shadows for far too long. But Yoda sprang up just in time, and they locked their blades together, faces getting closer, until Yoda saw under the hood Palpatine. Sidious would laugh as Yoda faltered with surprise, and Sidious twisted the saber under Yoda's guard arm, pulling the hilt from his grasp. The green blade clattered across the floor, and before Yoda could summon it back, Sidious unleashed a torrent of blue lightning, the bolt searing across the platform, and the current would slam into Yoda, hurling him across the steel wall with extreme force. His body would slump to the ground, and Sidious would pour more and more lightning until Yoda went unconscious. He was sure that Dooku was either dead or captured, and Sidious preferred death over Dooku being in the hands of the Republic. And in the Force, he could not feel Dooku's presence anywhere in the galaxy. So, for now, Sidious would call upon 4 Magna Guards hidden away deep in this lair. The guards would grab the unconscious Yoda, locking him in a nearby room of darkness. He would be placed in a ray-shield prison to personally witness the fall of the Jedi Order, while being able to do nothing about it except feel the darkness through the Force. Sidious would begin to move back into the galaxy with an adjusted plan of propaganda to begin making the Jedi seem evil after all. In the Jedi Temple, many more hours later, Mace Windu was becoming increasingly concerned by the disappearance of Yoda. Something was wrong. He can feel it. But he soon had to go into overseeing the deployment of Republic armies across the galaxy, led by Jedi generals and clone commanders. Without Yoda, Windu was taking on much more of a responsibility, until it could be decided who would be taking over Yoda's spot until he returns. In a matter of days, the galaxy would go from a state of just tensely wondering if war could truly break out, to Republic and Separatist armies spreading across the stars. And the Jedi never truly considered making sure that the public was on their side. And before long, the message coming from the Separatists was making the Jedi look terrible. The HoloNet News was reporting that Dooku had no intention of deploying the droid armies. They were forced into it when a Jedi strike team came to Geonosis with intent to assassinate Dooku. In the end, they were successful. Dooku was murdered after negotiating with the Separatist leaders, and now the Separatists had no choice but to fight back. Was this true? No, not exactly, but the public didn't know what to believe, and as far as anyone knew, Dooku was a highly respected former Jedi who just had different ideals than the current Jedi, and now he was dead, murdered by the Jedi Order that he chose to leave. The public was beginning to turn on the Jedi far earlier. There were some people trying to reverse this narrative, including Senator Padme Amidala. She spoke to the Senate, telling everyone that she was there on Geonosis. She was telling everyone the truth, that she went there to rescue a Jedi, and it was the Separatists who started all of this. So, the people throughout the galaxy would have to decipher between these different tellings of what actually happened on Geonosis. But overall, the Jedi were not seen favorably, and as the weeks went on, Jedi Anakin Skywalker was distracting himself from the death of his master by pushing himself to win every battle that he was involved in. Without Obi-Wan, there was no one to center him and to keep him reined in. And without Yoda, there was no one to give Anakin a Padawan. It never crossed Windu's mind. So Anakin was out in the galaxy, fighting beside the clones, winning whatever battle he was thrown into. After Geonosis, Anakin and Padme actually did not get married. Anakin was too distraught, and he was putting his full focus into the war. And as the Republic was seeing Anakin become the hero in battle that they desperately needed, the Separatists were seeing the same thing with General Grievous. The cyborg general was a lethal force in the galaxy, winning every battle that he led his droids into, cutting down any Jedi Knight that he came across. As battle after battle played out, and Anakin and Grievous were making their way across the galaxy, it seemed as if they were destined for a showdown. Sidious had trouble keeping Grievous in check, and Anakin was winning battles, so Windu and the Council overall were just letting him continue on, and then it would happen. It was reported that Grievous and his army were taking Megiddo, so Anakin Skywalker and the 501st were the closest ones to Megiddo, of course. Anakin was specifically told by Windu to wait for reinforcements, but there was no stopping him. Anakin knew how important defeating Grievous was, and he knew there may never be a better chance than this. And so it wouldn't be long before Anakin was at the front of the invasion of Megiddo, leading his men into a mission that was not authorized. The clones of the 501st witnessed firsthand just how great Anakin was in battle. They would follow him just about anywhere. Today was different though. They could all feel it as they hit the ground. Explosions were shaking the area, shattering shards of glass and ice all around. Anakin led the 501st through the ruins of nearby buildings that were torn down by tanks. LAAT gunships roared overhead, blasters tearing down rows of droids. But as they advanced, the enemies just kept coming. B-1 battle droids, super battle droids, marching over their fallen droids, firing at clones wherever they could. The fighting was brutal. AT-RTs, clone speeders fired into the streets, tearing apart enemy lines. But spider droids answered back with blasts that could bring buildings down, and took many clones down with them. Clones were crushed under the rubble. Vulture droids streaked overhead, firepower blasting men hard into the ice. Bombers flew past Anakin and his squad, spraying the bombs into the ground. Still, Anakin would move fast. The 501st pushed forward, planting charges, destroying tanks, and holding ground for seconds before being overrun. The streets were littered with fallen soldiers, smoking armor, or broken metal. But Anakin pushed on, because he knew who was waiting at the end of these long roads. As Anakin cut through a final squad of battle droids, he would finally find the Separatist stronghold. But behind him, his army was falling apart, and Captain Rex made the call to evacuate. Anakin didn't listen. Through the storm of fire and icy rain came General Grievous. The cyborg had his droids pursue the evacuating clones, as he would take Skywalker alone. Grievous unfolded his forearms, lightsabers sparking to life. Anakin gripped his weapon, and he stepped forward, the two of them closing in on each other. Anakin could feel his anger flaring up inside of him, the pain of losing Obi-Wan, the hatred he held for Yoda for letting him die, and Anakin would use all of it in this duel. He leapt high into the air, slamming down as their blades met in a flash of blue and green against the red and gray glow of fire around them. Grievous struck with overwhelming speed, spinning his sabers in deadly wheels, forcing Anakin back across the slick, icy ground. Each swing sent Anakin having to take a step back, reevaluate his approach. Grievous was fast, unpredictable, unlike anything or anyone Anakin had ever fought or practiced in duels. Anakin ducked under a heavy strike, then rolled away from a sudden stab, sliding across a wet surface, cutting at Grievous's legs. But the general leapt over him, landing with a crash that split the icy streets. Anakin again ran in, but the clawed feet of Grievous kicked him back into the ice, and Anakin had to quickly recover. The fights would be relentless now. Grievous hammered down blow after blow, two sabers locking with Anakin's blade, while the other two lashed out. Anakin dodged as best he could, using bursts of the Force to keep his balance. He sliced through one arm of Grievous, stole a green blade, helping to even the odds. The two of them fought along a narrow walkway, with the sounds of battle growing ever distant, and Anakin would cut through another arm, then smash his shoulder into Grievous's chest plate, knocking him back into a burning wall. Grievous spun away, body burning all around now. It was quite intimidating, but Anakin's attacks grew faster, each strike forcing Grievous to retreat, until another saber was knocked from his grasp, then another, and he had none left. So Grievous went all in, lunging at Anakin with his hands outstretched to try and rip him apart. But Anakin just cleaved through Grievous's spine. The general's body cracked and fell to the ground as he died. Rain kept falling around them, washing the scorched metal black as Anakin stood over the wreckage of Grievous. He knew the council would be proud. But instead, upon returning to the temple, Anakin was immediately sidelined. He just killed General Grievous, but in the mission report, Anakin would learn of the massive amount of casualties that came from his attack, both civilian and clone trooper. He was too aggressive, and the interim Grandmaster Plo Koon would send Anakin on a meditative retreat for a month. Go be with the Force, find his center. Anakin would be frustrated by this, but when he soon spoke to Captain Rex, Rex said it was a good idea. Anakin lost some of the trust of his men on Megiddo, and this helped Anakin to see that he indeed does need the help. So, he would go to a remote Jedi moon, and he would begin centering his thoughts, trying to find himself. He focused on Padme. Anakin loved her, but he knew he needed this time away. He remembered his mother's death, Obi-Wan's death. They came far too close together. It broke him, and this meditation retreat would help Anakin, and he would soon think of Yoda. Deep down, Anakin missed his calming presence, and the Jedi never found Yoda or Dooku's ship. He could still be alive. So today, about a week into his retreat, Anakin would pursue this thought, searching for Yoda's presence in the Force, searching for answers. And across the galaxy, Yoda was indeed still alive. He was chained up in the industrial sector lair, guarded by Magna guards. With only meditation as his tool, the guards thought Yoda was just exhausted or giving up whenever he would close his eyes and secretly dive into the Force. Yoda was searching for any Jedi with an open mind to the Force, but every day, all of the Jedi were far too distracted by war to truly focus and find him. Until now, on the remote moon, Anakin would feel a connection. His mind would bridge with Yoda across the galaxy, and Yoda would be able to whisper one thing before the connection was cut off. He would just whisper, "Limerge building," and Anakin would be left alone, wondering if what he just saw and heard was real, but he knew he had to pursue. And of course, Anakin would leave this planet far earlier than instructed and go immediately into the Jedi research rooms in the temple. He would plug in any known locations of buildings under the Limerge title, the same word Yoda told him, and he would discover there is one here on Coruscant. So Anakin would go alone into the industrial sector. He would locate this building, and he would prepare himself. Inside of the lair, Yoda was waiting. He knew Anakin would come, despite Yoda's decision on Geonosis. It was a decision that Yoda regretted, choosing to kill instead of to save. It was not the Jedi decision, and he would make up for it. Finally, Anakin would enter, cut down the guards, and free Yoda. Anakin would locate Yoda's lightsaber and hand it to him, and then Yoda would tell Anakin that Sidious is sure to be here at any moment. Palpatine is his secret identity. Anakin was naturally shocked by this, but Yoda was right. And in moments, Sidious would arrive and sneer to Yoda that he should have killed him right away. Sidious's arrogance blinded him to Yoda's true power. Anakin and Yoda would charge at the Sith together, and Sidious met them with a brutal wave of strikes, cutting low at Yoda, high at Anakin in the same motion. Yoda spun beneath the swings, darting at Sidious's legs, while Anakin's heavier strikes came from above. Sparks flew through the air as they clashed. Sidious backed away, then unleashed a storm of lightning, forcing both Jedi back. Anakin raised his blade, absorbing the blasts, while Yoda leapt to the side, springing off a support beam and striking at Sidious's side. The Sith twisted, blocking Yoda, but left himself open for Anakin's attacks. The blow sent Sidious stumbling across the floor. He recovered, with a flurry of angry thrusts, but the Jedi pressed him backwards. Anakin kicked Sidious into a row of sparking conduits after they were hit by Sith lightning, the burst of light blinding Sidious for an instant. Yoda launched himself at Sidious's chest, while Anakin brought his saber down in a crushing blow. Both blades struck Sidious together, sending him sprawling to the floor, and this time, the Jedi would finish it together. Sidious was done. It was over, and from here, things could quickly begin to change. With the Sith gone, the Jedi could bring the truth of the war to the Senate, exposing the lies that fueled all of it. Padme led the push for peace, working with Separatist senators to end the conflict through true negotiations. Worlds began to rebuild. The Republic slowly transformed into a more balanced government. The Jedi shifted to guiding the galaxy towards recovery instead of being soldiers. Yoda and Anakin would find themselves walking a new path together. Their trust began to mend as they trained side by side, with Yoda completing Anakin's training without Kenobi around anymore. They actually learned to reach deeper into the Force, calling upon voices of those who passed. Qui-Gon would come to them and reveal that he was able to bring Obi-Wan into the Force netherworld. Anakin would reunite with his old master, and under Plo Koon's steady leadership as Grand Master, the Jedi would rebuild their order as protectors of the people. Anakin's anger and doubt would fade over the years, and he became a great Jedi of wisdom and skill. The darkness that once threatened to consume him was gone, replaced by the steady light of the Force, mended by Yoda and the ghost of Kenobi and Qui-Gon. The galaxy moved forward in a new age, where the Jedi stood ready as guardians of hope. And folks, that is our story for today. One I'm not gonna lie, I kind of struggled to write. Went on for a couple days, and it had a lot of rewrites or I don't know, it makes it sound like I'm some sort of screenwriter, but no, it was just a lot of changes that went into this. Initially, I was going to kill both Obi-Wan and Anakin, but then I thought it'd be kind of, I don't know, more impactful if one of them did survive, and kind of reminded Yoda that he did do this, because, I don't know, it was a fun thing to pursue. Thought I'd have Yoda go face Sidious, and initially I was going to have Yoda kill Sidious there, and then I changed that. Initially, I was going to have Grievous go down a different part of his story. I'd changed a lot, but overall, I think it came to a pretty fun story. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you want to see next. I've got a few fun ideas coming your way. But yeah, appreciate you guys, and I'll see you in the next video.